Greetings, I am Erin Patton, metaphysical master in a millennial age, and it is my life's purpose to guide you and organizations along an enlightened path. So I invite you to sit comfortably and tune in as I welcome you to the Meta Business Millennial, where we get the real conversations you won't get in the boardroom so that we understand this is exactly the path we need to be on in order to grow, evolve, and thrive. Greetings, I am Erin Patton, and welcome to the Meta Business Millennial podcast. I am joined here today by Lisa Marree, who is a holistic health practitioner and also coaches people in high performance leadership. And she does it using epigenetics, neuroplasticity, and her incredibly courageous story and background. And I am just so honored and humbled to have her join me here today. I'm like stuttering on my words in the beginning because I'm just so energized to be here with her. I can do nothing else but introduce Lisa to you right now. So welcome, Miss Lisa.
Thank you so much. And I am beyond excited to be here as well. I've spoken to a lot of audiences, and I am so excited about this show. So I'm absolutely honored that you have invited me on to just try and share my goodness to your listeners and help give them some value today.
Yes. Well, let's get into it because I have so many questions. First of all, where are you from? Like, tell us a little bit about how you grew up, what your life looked like, how it might have influenced what you're doing today. We would just love to know a little bit about just who is Lisa?
I've had many lives in one is probably a great way to explain that. But I currently live in the beautiful Sunshine Coast. That's actually a name in Queensland, Australia. And I was born in Australia, but I've been so blessed to travel the world. And one thing that does, it actually gives us contrast of how lucky we are.
Yes, absolutely.
But my where I am today is literally a product of my extreme life. And I was born into a very violent situation. And my mother had psychiatric illness, but my first memory, and I think this, through trying to process all of the trauma, the first memory I ever have was I was called into my parents' bedroom, and my dad was sitting on the end of the bed crying, and there was just a single suitcase there. And he just said, I love you, but I can't stay here anymore. And whatever goes through a 4-year-old's mind, my sister and I, we were just crying. But all I can remember is fear.
Yes.
And then you think, why have I been such a bad child? You don't love me anymore. Why are you leaving? You're not going to be able to protect us. Because my mother had psychiatric illness. And so moving forward from there, I'm just going to try and give you little pieces of the puzzle to give you the building blocks of how I've ended up here. Of course, and my mother was in and out of psychiatric hospitals all of my childhood until I left home and possibly beyond that. But I disconnected all relationships with her when I was 20. I'm now in my 50s. So it's been a very long time of not. I was always alone, put it that way. I never had nurturing or guidance from the family unit.
Yes.
And so when I was about 6 years old, and this is a bit of a funny story to drop in there, you know how there's school athletic carnivals and swimming carnivals, and I threw myself in this 50-meter pool. I don't know the yard.
Yeah, we do that here too.
Yeah, and about halfway I started to sink. but I was all brave and gusto, and for some reason I decided that I wanted to be a swimmer. But yeah, go figure.
I used to swim. Mm-hmm.
But at that moment, what happened was my mother agreed, and then I went to swimming training. So morning and evening, I was away from home 5 hours a day.
Yeah.
During the school block, I was away from home. So that was safety to me. However, that environment, I was surrounded by champions. We had national champions, world champions, and even an Olympian in our squad.
Oh,
so
wow.
I was at that age, I was surrounded by, you can be anything you want.
Yes.
You can. But what we did is I learned mind movies of running the race in my mind. I ended up being a national swimmer. So that was a great foundation for me, having the belief that I could be anything that I wanted to be. But I also had an inner knowing, like there was the horrors of the home, where there was this little voice that said, Lisa, this is not normal. This doesn't happen to your friends in their family homes. And so of course I withdrew because every day was fear. And it wasn't just the physical violence; it was the psychological terror. That it was sometimes a lot worse than the physical violence. And so the swimming became her obsession as well. So I started swimming for her. I started to hate it. I then went to martial arts, and this was the game changer. When I was about 14. I thought it was twofold, because I thought, well, I can defend myself in a better way. But also, once again, I was surrounded by people who had a completely different mindset. But it was a metaphysics club. It was, we learned Tai Chi, we learned how to channel Chi, so this new world that I was exposed to actually felt really comfortable. I felt like I was home, and I was only 14. So I became more curious. I was always curious. As a kid, I was just fascinated by Mother Nature and, watching ants and watching insects, and how does the water not float into the sky, and what's out beyond the stars, all these interesting little curiosities that intrigued me, which is probably why I became a scientist. What was also happening is that I would be at night. I think I just needed to get the heck out of my body and escape. So I would visit planets, and these dreams were so real that I was on planets where there were big planets and big moons around, and it was just like I was flying through the galaxy. Little did I know that I probably was.
Absolutely. Must be traveling.
Yep. So all of these interesting little things were happening. Things got very, very serious at home. My mother started to tell me, because I was starting to stand in my power, which is something that she could not tolerate.
Yeah.
And as any teenager does, they want to actually stand in their power. But, the wrong thing I believe adults do is we challenge them too much. We don't allow them to have their voice, and they might not rebut so much if we allowed them to have more voice rather than shut them down.
Yes.
But that's in a semi-normal family. We're talking very abnormal. But because mum was always on this cocktail of psychotropics as well, and there were knives and blood and weapons, and it was just awful. And back in the day, child safety and child protection was just not really a thing.
Yeah.
We've come a long way, which is fantastic, and it's I guess people like me who have stepped into that role of protecting children. I haven't gone down that route. I've taken a little bit of a different route, but it's coming full circle. It's coming 360. When I was 15 and I really started to stand in my power, that threatened my mother, and she started to tell me that while I was sleeping, she was going to like slit my throat. And at that time, I just thought, I've got to get out of here. You know, I can't stay here any longer, because I wasn't ready to go.
Right.
I felt I had, like, for some reason, I was being put through this life challenge to, like, this inner voice was saying, Lisa, there's something bigger out there. There's something much more out there for you. I ran away from home, went to a halfway house, which was all kinds of people there. In the end, I went back home to finish year 12. The law enforcement were always involved. But to run away again, like, at this stage, I was just running away from my problems rather than understanding how to process them and deal with them. I joined the army. And so that was fantastic, because once again, there was leadership, there was discipline, there were all the things that I was very used to. But it was just space for me to breathe, because I was like 2 states away from my family home. And I had a very serious accident. There's a pattern that started to happen. Because of all of my, I guess, internalized fear, I started to develop a lot of autoimmune disease.
Yeah.
I had systemic endometriosis. So I ended up getting chopped up by surgery 14 times before I was 29, and a hysterectomy at 29.
Wow.
Lots of hormone therapy. It was pretty horrific. During my military service, I had a very serious accident that smashed my hip. So I was left lower limb disabled. So there was a pattern of suffering going on. Like, there was a physical suffering. As we know with the chakras as well, all the survival ones are the lower 3, which is where all of my trauma and disease was. It was it was blocked. So it was throwing everything at me. But, you know, but what it was is that my normal state was suffering. So I would just soldier through that. Excuse the pun.
That's all you knew how to do.
That is all I knew how to do. It was literally living in the fight and flight. And for me, it was both all of the time. Like, there was, if I couldn't fight it, I'd fly, I'd flee. So it was I because I was of no use to the military, being non-rehabilitating. I was medically discharged, and I just thought my pattern was, and this is, I hope people are starting to think about what patterns are going on in their life as well, because my pattern was also, I need to win. I need to be a winner. I need to be a champion. I need to achieve stuff. I was so driven by success. But the underlying message there is, I needed to be significant. I needed to be of value to something, someone. And if anybody has, ever partaken in Tony Robbins' trainings, he talks about the 6 human needs, and significance is in the top rating there. Certainty, uncertainty, significance. So what I really needed was significance, but I was driven by angry desire.
Period.
Which is very, very toxic.
Mm-hmm.
Funny thing is, I thought I was okay, because I was living life, I was surviving, I was very successful. And I didn't really, it was probably only around 15 years ago. So when I was in my maybe late 30s, early 40s, that I realized I was as angry as hell.
Yes.
And I wasn't aware of it. Like, I've had all of these different evolutions, many different timelines in my life, but I really didn't think I was angry, but I certainly was, which is a big thing that holds people back. And they don't realize that they've got this internalized anger that's keeping them stuck in a pattern. Like, there's a real obvious pattern when you stop and you think about it.
Yes.
So I went and mature age student to university, became a medical scientist in diagnostic pathology. I went into the oncology, bone marrow transplant. So I was surrounded by death a lot, which was a good thing for me because it kept me very grounded because of the amount of suffering I was living, the amount of pain that, like, it was 24/7. I didn't sleep. I probably used alcohol as a crutch because I couldn't take pain medication, so I'd have a few wines every night. But hey, I was okay. I was surviving. I was still practicing all my health things. I was eating healthy. I was meditating. I was doing all. But, when you don't address the root problems, but I was learning. I learned to reflect. I learned to stop and be still and be quiet and really look at things and just say, why did that happen? Did I make it happen? And what is the lesson in there? And I think that's really important to ask yourself real quality questions all the time.
Yes.
So moving forward, I became so ill by the age of 33. I was bedridden. They couldn't chop any more out with the endo because they'd chopped whatever they needed to. And I was just so sick. I had 5 autoimmune diseases by that stage. And I just remember being in such a dark place. And I just thought, you're going to find a way, Lisa, that there is a solution out there. And it's up to you. You've just got to keep going. So I was introduced to some amazing nutrition products that, help repair my gut and just put some nutrition back into my system because I had no gut health, of course. Mm-hmm. And everything that I'd been trying prior, because I tried hundreds and hundreds of products, and, it was just like my body was rejecting everything, I think, because I was so sad. I was so brokenhearted. I was so angry. It was just like, girl, you've got to sort this stuff out.
Yeah.
You've got to just keep going deep inside and look, keep looking.
Yeah.
And so I'd always been exposed to Eastern medicine because my auntie did acupuncture. So there's all these little, I call them breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
And I just kept taking the breadcrumbs and it was just like, Lisa, go this way. Lisa, go this way. I was listening to the whispers.
Yes.
And I just thought, well, my personal philosophy with Western medicine is not aligned because of the ignorance of pharmaceuticals being forced on humans. I'm going to just put myself out there, and that's well known. Like, we know that pharmaceuticals are not the answer. Wellness is the answer. And so when I was in oncology, humans were guinea pigs. Like, they just thought, okay, we've got a new drug, let's try it on that person. They're being told they've got 3 months to live.
It's a medical practice.
And I don't believe any human has any right to tell someone they have 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, because that person needs to have hope. If you can, your mind can make you sick, your mind can make you well. And so if we tell people that if you change X, Y, Z, your body is going to move towards wellness. And I was living proof of that. And so I moved into holistic wellness, really focusing on people's nutrition, helping them. Of course, in women, most of them have a real issue with weight, but it's actually not the weight that is the problem. It's what's going on up here. And food, alcohol, binging Netflix, all of these ways to numb ourselves out from the real pain that we need to address is the core problem. And I'd always had a very heavy mindset component when I was with my clients, because I tried to really help them understand that they are not their brain. They are actually in control of their brain, but when they are drowning in their stuff, their body is driving their mind because of all the hormones of stress, all the epigenetics, the changes to our gene expression is what is driving people's habits. And so I really made a big flip. This is where the transition occurred. And please remind me to circle back to the blue door, because that was one of the most biggest timeline events where my life changed on its biggest trajectory ever. But I made a shift because I've helped thousands of women lose weight, and many of them have been able to maintain that long term because they've understood they have to work on their mind as the main priority. Like there are a fundamental core pillars of health, sleep, movement, nutrition, rest, all of these things. Mindset is like the 100% thing going on here. And I was frustrated, not with the clients of as soon as there was a road bump in their life to bounce back to their old habits, but I was frustrated in the gap of how can I really help them to change their way of thinking and their thoughts, their emotions, their feelings, like that whole cascade that goes on in the body. And so I've made that major shift to just really focusing on helping people reprogram the patterns that they're stuck in. And half the time they don't even know they are. Yeah. It's like if you're not aware, you can't even take that first step.
Yes.
So as the breadcrumbs were left for me for many, many years, I love using the terminology on planting seeds. So it's just got to be in the right fertile environment for the seed to germinate. And as we had a very brief chat before this, the great awakening is happening.
Yes.
And got goosebumps saying that again. And it's so exciting. So it's incredible thought leaders like you who is bringing that, not only through your voice, but through other voices of helping people have that seed planted, and then they know they're meant for more. They know that they're not living the fulfilled life, that they are potential, like that we have infinite potential. We can lift cars off people in a crisis and then think, how the heck did I do that? We are a superhuman, but we are trapped. As I like to say to people, we were born perfect, bubbling bliss of joy. And then we became humanized by all these layers of rules and conditions and stereotyping and the school system and the government. And then when we've had enough and we just say, this is all crap, we then spend the rest of our life taking all those layers off. And the most important thing, Erin, is to pay that message forward to then help others do the same and lead.
Period. First of all, I want to thank you so much for sharing your story, because, it's powerful, it's vulnerable, it's sad. It's all the things, all the emotions. Yet, you needed it. Like you said it yourself. Like, had I not had these experiences to show me how angry I was, victimized I was, and all these things, like you would never have had that desire to come up out of it, especially the illness. And I
Yes.
can speak to that myself, you know, my traumatic back. I always speak about my trauma in my childhood, losing my sister, my dad going to prison, like having my own, you know, grieving mother, being raised by a grieving mother that also suffered with mental illness issues, and having to raise my goddamn self in a perfect world. I also was a competitive swimmer, you know, straight A student, like all those things. And so it was like life for me, like Shakespeare, life was a stage. And I was performing for everyone. So much so I performed all the way to Harvard, you know? So for me, everything about what you just shared deeply resonates, as I hope it does with some of our viewers and listeners. And there was just so much to unpack there, but I'm just going to keep pushing forward with your story because I want to know about this blue door. And my next question is always like, okay, you did all this, but what was the moment when you woke up? Like when you were like, Lisa, it is time. You know what I'm saying? It is time to get up.
Yeah.
Because you've had the illness, you had the accidents, you've had, you know, the trauma as a child. I'm sure you were dealing with relationships. We didn't even get into that, you know, so we already know trash, you know, like we already know. Because if you're not aligned within, nothing can be aligned without. And that's essentially what we talk about a lot too in our current walk in terms of divine union and finding mates and things like that, and finding love in your life. You know, fuck a career. Like if you aren't dealing with yourself and your relationships, you know, you're really not going to have that joy and that peace. So I really would love for us to kind of continue on with the blue door. And if that at all relates to that metaphysical awakening, what was your great awakening?
Whew, just had a rise of emotion then. Gosh.
Yeah.
And yes, there was a couple of abusive husbands in there, of course.
Yeah.
And the last one, that I'll spend 30 seconds on this because I was, and like this was, when did all that finish? When I was about 34. So we're about 20 years. I've been with the current gentleman for the last 20 years. Like he's pretty messed up, but we've sort of walked this journey together and we're getting there together. So, but out of that, Brad came with 2 infant girls. And here I am, never wanting to have children.
Oh, wow.
And God sorted that for me by having a hysterectomy at 29. And what was the lesson in there, Lisa? To learn what it was like. Oh, we're going to get emotional. To be present in a child's life where they were safe. To watch them grow up in safety. And so that was part of my healing process, to be able to be part of those girls' lives while they were growing up, and they had safety and love and a couple of messed up parents, but we figured it out as we went along. And the goal was to break the cycle, because Brad came from a very violent, terrorized upbringing as well. So interestingly, you are presented with, we always have the things put straight in front of us to be able to deal with that karma, that lesson, to heal. We just have to be awake to see it. But yes, the second husband, I worked very hard. I was very successful, had a couple of investment properties. He wanted to buy a business. I was blindly asked to be guarantor for him in the business with my properties. Business went broke. I went bankrupt. Woo! And and so I was homeless at one stage because of that. So I was $500,000 in debt. So yeah, I missed that part. So I've ticked a lot of boxes, love. Like, yep, got that out of the way, that out of the way, that out of the way. So it's been hard. But it's about life happens for you, not to you.
Come on now.
Classic Tony Robbins sign.
Come on now.
The blue door. I was sitting in a conference it was a leadership conference in Singapore in 2011. And there were the speakers on stage were from Korea. They're beautiful husband and wife. Like they just oozed love. Like it was palpable. You could feel it. They were funny. They were loving. They were caring. At this point, I didn't live with kindness and compassion. Okay. So we're talking about the ice. I was called an ice maiden. Like that sort of gives you an idea of the resilience. Like get it done no matter what. No excuses, baby. I've done it all. No excuses. But that's not a way to live or teach. So there was a blue door up on stage and we listened through translation. And this is where you understand we are all connected, because I didn't have to hear words to have the impact of that moment. In the Buddhist philosophy, where the blue door is the doorway to joy and happiness. And excuse me, my phone just dinged. I thought I turned that off. And there we go. They were talking about, they used it in a slightly different term. They said this doorway is actually the doorway to your heart. Is your door open or closed? At that moment, I had a really big pain in my chest. And I just broke down crying. And that was the realization of angry desire. I was so driven by anger. My heart was so locked shut, probably from that day when I was 4 years old, when I saw my dad walk out the door with a suitcase. And I thought, who's going to protect us? He doesn't love me anymore. That if your heart is closed, yes, you sort of can't get hurt that much, but you sure as heck can't let any love in either, especially self-love. And at that moment, it was like a huge release. Like I just felt an enormous weight lifted off my soul. Not my shoulders, my entire being. And I cried helplessly. Like it was just all of these years, I've just not allowed any love into my being. I just had to prove the world you can do anything no matter what. But you can't do it without love. You can't do it without self-love. And so at that moment, it was like a flick of a switch. The door opened, and the feeling of download going on was incredible. And I just had, I'm going to change the world. I am so inspired to be able to give the world the love that they need and understand all of the things that have screwed us up, are preventing us from this love and connection to that universe, to everything, to everyone. And it was such a powerful moment. And so here we are about 14 years later, that like it was a in my health, in my relationships, my finances. There's a little like these are the core pillars that people talk about: health, wealth, and relationships. Like when you've got it all connected, and when you don't neglect, like when there's no holes in the bucket, of course there's going to be little holes, but like when there's not gaping crevices, because the water just runs out. Like when there's holes in the bucket, the water runs out. You keep trying to fill it up with all the wrong stuff, all the external stuff to give you satisfaction. And success without fulfillment is emptiness.
Period.
And so I'm on the team of the world changers and legacy makers, baby. Let's link arms and just do what we can to, like, the world is hypnotized right now by the stuff that's keeping them stuck. And, you know, it's their brains are hijacked. We've got to unhijack them and wake them up.
Yes, we're here to break the spell. And I'm so grateful that you shared that, because it really speaks to a few things that you shared that resonate with me. First of all, I want to go back to what you were talking about with the daughters, because for me, what I felt was, yes, you're nurturing the girls, but in reality, you're nurturing little Lisa that didn't get the love that she deserved.
Yes.
And that fundamentally is what this path is about, that I hope that our listeners and our viewers can really receive in this moment, is that all that we're doing is coming back to ourselves, coming home to ourselves. And, you know, you alluded to it before, we've kind of been hypnotized by and distracted by the world around us, when in reality, what is the being inside of us desiring truly? And it's that safety, it's that security, and it's that open door of love that you speak about, that blue door. And that's something that I've really started to just understand in terms of my path this past year, is healing what I had a little inner boy and inner girl. I had a little boy and girl, you know, because I had a very, you know, toxic masculine energy in my life, and that I'm, you know, just now starting to break free from, you know, dealing with challenges with my son's father, even my family members, things like that. So it's constantly this pressure of the toxic masculine relationships, the abuse, all those things. And understanding that, hey, that's something within me that's incredibly unhealed, that doesn't know how to protect my feminine, that doesn't know how to set boundaries, say no. You know, why are we guarantors for these people? You know what I'm saying? Like, I've made my mistakes, financial mistakes with men too. You know, we find ourselves compelled by what we think is love, when it's really manipulation, when it's really narcissism, it's really mind control, all the things that we're being hypnotized by. Like, I really want to help this person, be people pleasing, you know, playing the hero. And in reality, it's enabling, you know, it's giving of ourselves when we don't need to, and not necessarily pouring back into our cup. And so I really, really resonate with what you're sharing in terms of, when am I going to unlock that door for myself?
Yeah.
When am I going to unlock that love for self? And that happens, like you said, over 14 years. For me, it's been 7-8 years, and I've still made the mistakes in the 7-8 years. However, it was more of an awareness. Like, how can I have more love for myself? And I really want you to speak to that transition for you, because obviously this is the work that you do now in terms of coaching, helping people, supporting people in weight loss. Yet you take a very scientific approach. You use words like epigenetics. You use words like neuroplasticity that sound very, you know, scientific and scary. And is this Jurassic Park or is this metaphysics? You know, you know. So I really would like for you to speak to that transition. So when you unlocked your heart, you realize you had all of these unique skill sets: medical doctor, ex-military, former athlete. Like, how can I utilize these skills to really shed light and unspell the world, release the spell? I would love you to speak more to that.
It's been a process as well. It really, everything is an evolution, and it's fun unfolding. Like, I'm enjoying just watch it unfold, and I call it the magic carpet ride. But I'm enjoying the gravitation of people, not only the thought leaders into my space, but the seekers into my space. I try to demystify woo, because it really is like that quantum physics is it's science, and it's been made to be a bit weird, but it's not. And so how can we bring sides together and woo together, and just make it sound easy and fun? Because I like the world of neuroscience. We've learned more in neuroscience in the last 10 years than what we have in the last 100 years.
Oh, wow.
And it's phenomenal. It's because of the imaging that, the curious scientists have been able to, we can measure like the torus field around the human body. It's still one of those woo things, but hey, it's a magnetic field. We can measure it. It's just like, come on, it's documented. The electromagnetic radiation from the brain, the different, like when the Hawkins funnel, like the different levels of frequency, actually represents the different emotions of the human. And, beautiful work by Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza. Like, these guys are just disrupting the status quo and really changing the landscape of us saying it's real. Just allow, open up, allow the planting of the seeds to say, hey, what if this is real? I was so curious always through life, saying, what if it's true? And I would go with that. And one of the biggest things is to use your gut, Erin. You know that. That little voice in your gut, you're getting tapped on the head by your soul saying, pay attention to this, sister. Like, I'm guiding you the right way. So if you use the Mel Robbins 5 seconds rule and go with that, but if you go any longer, your head's going to take over and you're going to make the wrong decision. So what I don't talk all sciencey, where I meet people where they're at, because to help them understand that they can literally change their thoughts through a process of consciously talking to your subconscious and programming it that way, through guided meditation, through sound, through these physical things that is normal, and normal people do them, but it's consistency. Let's just throw something really weird out there, that you can't be part-time pregnant. Like, you either are or you aren't. So if you want to change, you can't be half-assed about it. You can't be part-time thinking about it. You got to, like, you're in committed. You're there. So it's, how bad do you want change? What are you prepared to do? But it's about making baby steps of certain tools and strategies, and doing the right thing in the right order. And it's just that simple.
Yes.
It's also about seeing where somebody's at right now. What's your life like? What are your commitments like? Family, all this stuff. Okay. What time can you commit to you upgrading yourself? What time are you prepared to commit? And then when you make that decision, like, it might need to be fine-tuned and tweaked. But if you really want to change, decisions mean break. Like, it means disrupt what you're currently doing. And if a lot of people don't follow through with goals and habits and so forth. And it's, once again, not following through is a habit. So we've got to take these tiny little steps. And what I focus on is I take an absolute holistic approach. Everything I do is about the full spectrum, the full 360 of mind, body, and soul. And we need to work on the fundamental core pillars of health. So that's a foundation. If you put crap food into your body's going to get sick and low energy and not sleep well and digestive issues and all these problems. Fact, if you put crap into your mind, it's going to do exactly the same thing. Our brain responds to what we put in it. And then if those patterns are hardwired, and it takes 66 days to rewire a new pattern, so people really need to understand the level of commitment that they need of consistency, then you're going to be able to have new pathways programmed. And so we work on health. We work on the fundamentals of relationships.
Yes.
Like we live all these rules based on what we think other people want or what we have of what others expect of us. And we live with a mask on. We just don't live our true self. And that slowly kills us as well.
Period.
And then within that, of course, so I work on the wheel of life and all the things that we talk about in that of health, wealth, and relationships. Excuse me. But that big thing is the self. Like that's the one that is going to be I've got the beautiful tree of life there. And I think about always being grounded. So I work on my physical body. And then we have, excuse me, should have got myself a drink of water. And we have the connection from up there.
Right.
But then our heart space is where that union happens.
Yes.
It's that whole connection.
Yes.
And so when we work on all of the things we need to work on and make sure nothing is neglected, but it's about unpacking the things that are keeping us stuck as well.
Yes.
Then that is the process I work with. So it's very simple. But what we're doing is we're changing the way the brain works through the positive input that you get through the the learnings, the meditation, the sound, the tasks, like the exercises that you do of processing things. But we're working on the physical health, our connection, our relationships with immediate family, the bigger social network that we have, and also ourselves. One thing that people don't really think about is their relationship with others when they're connected to this damn thing. Like I was listening to some information on brain health. It was a podcast. And on average, young people are connected to the internet 9 hours a day. That is actually destroying our brain to be able to work in the cohesion. Like our brain needs coherence. If not, it's just like chaos. It's like static frequency going on in there.
Yeah.
And we have poor attention. We have poor memory. We have irritability. We can't sleep. We really have to work on that. And it's discipline as a parent. Like all of you parents out there, it is your responsibility to not have your children grow up with all of the problems that us adults do. Okay? It's break the cycle now.
Yes. Agreed. And I don't know if this is a good place to kind of, sunset that aspect of it, but everything that you're sharing is so true. And I really want to speak to the aspects of where you're talking about the heart center and what resonated with me as you were talking about that were our chakras, 100%, because you were talking about how we have to listen to our gut, connect to our heart center to lead us in our mind in the directions that we're going. Yeah. And what people don't necessarily realize is our gut is connected to our second chakra, our sacral chakra, our seat of creativity, our seat of sexuality, close to our root, our seat of safety, our seat of security. And you mentioned this earlier, so that's why I wanted to bring it back, because this is an opportunity for us to go deep. This is the Meta Business Millennial podcast. So I wanted to talk about these chakra centers and understanding as you bring your energy into balance, you're opening up yourself up to more of these creative ideas, more of these abilities to think more positively, because one thing we do not want is a toxic positivity. And you just repeating things for the sake of repeating things, and then you're mad because you're not getting the results you want.
Yeah.
You have to understand, to your 360 point you made in the beginning also, this is about a holistic approach. We need to be working on the foods we eat. We need to be working on our energy centers. And like you said, it all connects back to the heart. Our upper chakras connect us to our energy bodies. Our lower connects us to our physical body. And when we're not in either, especially when we're not in our physical body, the rest can't be activated, period. So I love that you talked about that, because this is where the healing happens, is in the body. And so you talked about also doing Tai Chi as a youngster. So I recently became a Tai Chi master, went to Korea, did the whole ceremony last year. It was really beautiful. It was really beautiful, learning how to work with energy, understanding my meridians, the chakra systems in more detail, the breath work, how the breath works in it, holding postures for 30, 45 minutes, hour, doing 1,000 bows, like doing all these amazing physical feats. Why? So I can have more connectivity to my energy being. I'm doing all of this physical work so that I can be more connected to my true self. And this is something too that I hope people can understand in what you're sharing. And we're saying all these fancy things like the Taurus field and, all these chakras and these energy bodies. But at the end of the day, it's about connecting your energy to yourself and connecting back to your true self.
Yes.
And I know we're kind of getting close to the end. I didn't realize how fast we were going, but I really want you to speak to your offerings. Talk to our listeners, talk to our viewers about what it is that you specifically offer people, and then also how they could stay in touch with you and how they can reach you.
For sure. Thank you. And just to recap on when we don't have flow within our energy systems, our chakra system, and and we're stuck in our pain. Excuse me. We've got no energy field around us, and that's our life force. And so it's so important.
Yes.
Which is why people feel so terrible and brain fog and all of these things, is because we've sucked all of the energy force around us, and we should have an energy force around us.
Yeah.
So the work that I do literally starts at the root chakra and works its way up through that wheel of life. We start with the physical health, and that's one of my signature courses. It's called the Supernatural Incubator. I'm all about going supernatural, baby.
Yes, I love that.
So, and what we do through that is work through that whole process, that 360 approach. And we do it through, remember how I said it's doing certain steps in a certain order, and it's literally working from the root chakra and the physical body all the way up to our highest self. And with that reprogramming process going on, it's like a 4-phase reprogramming process. So there's an evolution of you going through that as well to completely rewire your nervous system, so the thoughts that you're sending to your body are going to actually nurture and serve you, rather than keep you in that survival mode of your body being flooded with the hormones of stress and survival. So that's of course where my passion is, to work at it as a 360. So it's a 3-month process, and as I said, it's 66 days to rewire a new pattern. So we've got that covered. But I do all sorts of little things. I'll be actually, I do a 5-day challenge to actually introduce that process if people want to do the challenge and then go into the incubator. But I take enrollees all the time for the incubator. So that's available. I will be starting. I love Qigong as well. So I'm going to be starting just a little once a week live meditation, possibly some Qigong movements, and just have people join in for 10, 15 minutes to just break the stuff that's going on in their life and just be present in their moment for 15 beautiful minutes.
Yeah.
But the main way to contact me is through my website, and there's a little chat bubble there as well that people can make direct inquiry through. But it is my name, so it's lisamarree.com. And I want to emphasize that in Marree, Marree, so Lisa, Lisa, MARREE.com is where you'll find me.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. I love that you brought it back to how your process is going, because that's something that my mentor constantly talks about is process goal alignment. And you were saying it's all about making sure the system is whole to get your outcome started from the bottom, rising to the top, to really have that fully integrated higher self exploration, integration, all those things. So that really is so beautiful. So thank you so much for sharing that. The incubator, the classes, 5-day courses. And for all of you who enjoyed this segment, you made it to the end. Thank you so much for sticking in there with us for the Metabusiness Millennial podcast. You already know who I am. I am at Erin Patton on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. You can also check the Metabusiness Millennial podcast on Instagram and, of course, YouTube. And if you want more resources for getting your energy up, for really feeling aligned with who you are, with your purpose, your business, your career, you can check out more resources at themetabusiness.world. And I want to thank Miss Lisa again for joining us all the way from down under Australia. Thank you.
I was so honored to be part of your show. Thank you so much for giving me the space to hopefully have some people have little seeds planted and start thinking about things that they're ready to change.
Yes, and the seeds have been planted. Awesome. Well, much love to you all. Thank you again, and see you next time on the Metabusiness Millennial podcast. Peace. Did you really love this episode of the Metabusiness Millennial podcast? Well, I am honored. And I appreciate you subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with your friends, because your feedback allows us to co-create more enlightened conversations. And if you're interested in growing your soul now, head over to my website, erinpatton.com, to find all the show notes, links, and free resources to get your energy activated today. In the meantime, stay bright, my friends. Much love and light. Peace.